Good morning. President Joe Biden's team, which has been hampered by Trump's refusal to allow a peaceful, cooperative transition, is preparing a multi front federal government effort to battle COVID 19, something the outgoing administration failed miserably at. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and other measures are very much in play during President Biden's first 100 days, and multiple reports said that President Biden is preparing a series of executive actions as soon as he takes office tomorrow afternoon, including rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, which President Obama was really frustrated when President Trump dropped out. And he's also planning to end a travel ban for citizens from some mainly Muslim countries. Biden has the task of returning America to its lofty standard in the world. Let it be known, starts right now with our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis. Dr. Chavis, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Stacey. I'm doing fine, and I'm broadcasting right here from Pennsylvania Avenue in the red zone, a few blocks from the Capitol. And of course, this is another day that the Lord made, and we're thankful for the Black Press of America. Karen Carter Richards, our illustrious chair of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, all of our publishers from the West Coast to East Coast, the North and the South. We are engaged. We're reporting the news, but we're advocating also for freedom, justice, and equality. And thank you, Stacey. There's a lot of news, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just a programming note for everyone tomorrow, beginning right here with Let It Be Known from 7:30 all day, we will be broadcasting, as Dr. Chavis said, from the red zone. We'll be broadcasting with some of our publishers, including our chair, Karen Carter Richards, who will join us at 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning as we cover the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So stay tuned for that. All day we will show the inauguration right here on the NNPA Black Press, Facebook, YouTube, and all of our other channels as well. Dr. Chavis, so the Biden administration is a lot on their plate, probably more so than any other president in history. What are we talked about the George Floyd and Policing Act. We know that's a big thing, the John Lewis Voting Act. What's the first thing you believe that the new president has to really address?
But I think he's indicated Vice President-elect Biden President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris have both indicated that getting a hold and to stop this spread of this dangerous, deadly virus, the coronavirus, I think that that is going to be the top priority. There are millions of African Americans and millions of all Americans whose families have been negatively impacted. The mortality rate in the Black community is still too high, 3 times that what it is in the white community. So we got a lot of problems, but I think his number one priority is going to be restoring the health of America. And then certainly voting rights, police brutality. I'm glad he's going to join the World Health Organization again, and he's going to join the Paris Climate Control again. So I think that, we can look for a lot of activity. He's indicated on the first day, not on the first 100 days, but on the first day, he's going to sign a number of executive orders on immigration, on environment, and certainly to get a hold of the coronavirus. I think he has a great task force, and the NNPA's coronavirus task force. We're looking forward to working with the new Biden-Harris administration to get more education out, to raise the level of awareness. And we got to protect our people. That's what the Black Press is all about, publishing truth in a way that improves the quality of life of our constituents, our readers, our communities, and for all people at that point.
Yeah, there's a couple of things, Dr. Chavis, I want to pull out what you just said. First, the Paris Climate Accord. I know that you have been a champion of environmental justice. Talk about how important that is to the Black community.
Well, it's very, very important. There's something called the social determinants of health. And what that means is that our health is impacted by the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, um, where we eat our food from. Does the land have toxins? Does the land have poisons that eventually get into our system? So the Paris Climate Control Act was something that the whole globe, the universal nations from around the country, around the world signed. And unfortunately, the Trump administration pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. And so we're going to rejoin. So the environmental justice movement, you recall, Stacy, started in 1982 in a little small Warrenton, North Carolina, environmental justice. Last thing I wanted to do is get arrested again in my home state of North Carolina, but I got arrested because they were dumping PCB, polychlorinated biphenyls, which is a cancer-causing substance, in the black community. They dug a hole and dumped tens of tons of PCB in the hole. Make a long story short, we tried to stop that landfill. Over 500 people went to jail. And then 2 or 3 years later, after they put that stuff in the ground, when African American and other women, it was predominantly black community, when sisters became pregnant, they found out that in their breastfeeding milk was full of polychlorinated biphenyls. And the tragedy, like in Flint, Michigan, once these toxins get into your lymph system, it stays there for the rest of your life. And that is why we say climate control, environmental justice, healthcare, the social determinants of our health are very vital. We talk about the coronavirus, and the coronavirus has exposed all these pre-existing conditions that exist in our community. Another example, in Harlem, New York, 60% of all the children have asthma in Harlem. They're not born with asthma, but they get asthma because of not having the poor air quality. And so we have to see that this environmental issue is not just a sort of a pristine for the environmental groups. It is a civil rights issue. It is a human rights issue. And that's something that we have to be on top of every day of our life.
Yeah, and good morning to KP Hodges out in North Houston, Texas, and Deborah L. Carter. Good morning to you as well. And Dr. Chavis, it's so interesting to me when we talk about COVID. One of our NMPA coronavirus task force members, Dr. Ebony Hilton from the University of Virginia, points out that in Virginia, COVID-19, 19%, I should say, of the total population is Black in Virginia, but they are 21% of COVID cases, 29% of COVID hospitalizations, and 24% of COVID deaths. And only 9% of those of Black people have received the COVID vaccine. That's a problem, Dr. Chavis, isn't it?
That's a very serious problem. And we're really thankful for the leadership of Dr. Ebony Hilton and all of the great doctors there at the University of Virginia and who are part of our coronavirus task force. But certainly these disparities, again, if we had health disparities before COVID, they're only amplified and heightened during this pandemic. So we have to get a hold of this. We have to challenge it. We have to also encourage our brothers and sisters not to go for a lot of the myths that are out there about the vaccinations and about our health care. It is vital. And that's why, we got to bring Dr. Hilton back on this show one morning, Stacy, as we get more information. But the statistic that she cited from Virginia is the same in North Carolinas, in Maryland. It's the same in California, same in Texas. It's throughout the country. We have these disparities that negatively impact our community. And of course, the rollout of the vaccinations, we now know that the Trump administration pretended that they had all these vaccinations stored. And when Secretary Azar's Health and Human Service Secretary resigned last week, it came to be known that they do not have a stockpile. So the Biden-Harris administration is going to be facing this challenge. But you know what? I'm confident. President Biden has been around for a long time in Washington. He knows how to get things done. and Vice President Harris, former Senator Harris, she's a great leader, not only from California, but has served well in the United States Senate. Now she'll be the Vice President of the United States. I have confidence in the Biden-Harris administration, not only to tackle the coronavirus, but to tackle all the other maladies and issues that confront Black America and that confront all of Americans in this day and time.
Yeah, good morning to Michelle Whitty. Welcome to Let It Be Known. You can see us every single morning at 7:30, Monday through Fridays, right here on this channel and on YouTube and other elements other platforms, I should say, of the Black press. Bert Schuman, good morning. Excellent reportage, including environmentally related racism. In addition, I would mention an end to brutal and barbarous federal executions under the aegis of the Trump administration. And that's a good point, Dr. Chavis. So on Monday, on Martin Luther King Day, the 13th, I believe it was the 13th, yes, the 13th individual was executed since the summertime, really. So in a very short period of time, the Trump administration executed about 13 individuals, including 8 of them being African American. And yesterday was a young man who was executed for participating, being a part of, anyway, a double homicide some years ago. It was shown that the young man was in the wrong place at the wrong time, pretty much, that he was not directly involved but implicated, always maintained his innocence, yet still executed yesterday, Dr. Chavis. So that's something else we'll probably see an end to. President Obama put an end to federal executions. President Trump brought them back, and I would have to believe that President Biden will probably eliminate them again.
Well, no question about it. During the 8 years of President Obama, there were no federal executions. And of course, unfortunately, the last 4 years under President Trump, federal executions began again. And again, it's just like mass incarceration, which is an issue. African Americans are disproportionately incarcerated. African Americans are disproportionately put to death. African Americans are disproportionately brutalized by police brutality. And all of these measures, you find these disparities, this discrimination, this white supremacy, this racism. What happened on January the 6th, Stacey, was a manifestation of the growth and the rising up of white supremacy in America. It has always been there latent, but under the last 4 years, white supremacy has become the greatest domestic threat to all of Americans. And that is why tomorrow there will be 25,000 National Guardsmen and thousands of other law enforcement just to protect the new president, the new vice president, and the orderly transition of power from one administration to another. I think it means that we have to work hard. But, you know, as I said to you, I think off camera yesterday, when times get tough, we get tougher. When times get rough, we get rougher, but we do it in a nonviolent way. We do it using the strength of our faith in God, the strength of our tradition. We've inherited a long struggle, a long legacy of being able to say no to injustice and yes to freedom and equality, and then to work for it and struggle for it and raise up a new generation of freedom fighters. And that's why I'm so proud of the Black press today in all of its platforms, in print, in digital and social media, and what we're doing in terms of our broadcasts. We're keeping our faith and we're keeping our strength and moving forward.
Yes, and Dr. Chavis, there's also a new Congress. The 117th Congress has begun, and the Congressional Black Caucus now has 59 members, and of course, a new caucus chairperson, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. The CBC will continue its leadership role in tackling issues of racial discrimination and inequity, economic dislocation, and health disparities that include COVID-19. Dr. Chavis, what's your expectations for the CBC in the 117th Congress?
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to announce that the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Honorable Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, there's a strategic alliance between the NNPA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and the CBC. And our strategic alliance is only going to be strengthened. We had a great alliance with the Honorable Karen Bass from California, and before her, the Honorable Cedric Richmond from Louisiana. Now, Congresswoman Beatty from Ohio, she's already indicated that we're going to strengthen the alliance between the Black press and the Congressional Black Caucus. And let me just say something about Congressman Richmond. He's now will be the senior advisor to President Biden, as well as director of the White House Office of Community Liaison. Very powerful position. He'll be the highest ranking Black next to Vice President Harris in the White House. And I think that President Biden will rely on the advice and counsel from Cedric Richmond. We're so proud of this young man, member of Congress at an early age, a great lawyer in his own right, who will be advising President Biden on a daily basis. So, and also not only working with the Congressional Black Caucus, Stacey, going forward for 2021, we're also going to have a closer working relationship with the White House itself. So we're looking forward. We got our sleeves rolled up. I've known President Biden, as he will be as of tomorrow, for a long time. He met with the Black press. You recall that picture on the screen was from March of 2020, where we met down in South Carolina, right before the South Carolina primary, which was pivotal when he got the endorsement of the Honorable Jim Clyburn. And then he won the South Carolina primary, and that catapulted him to be the leading candidate for the Democratic nomination. And look where we are now. In January 2021, we're going to have a new president, a new vice president, a new Congress. Keep in mind now the Democrats control both the Senate and the House and the White House. So listen, all our public policy agenda is going to get done over the next 4 years, unlike the last 4 years.
Yeah, now going back to that meeting in South Carolina where you sat down with Joe Biden for about an hour for a really, really interesting interview, if you will. Joe Biden really spoke about his relationship with the Black community, spoke about how he grew up around African Americans and how that affected him and how he really carried that and promised. And he's lived up so far. He's been living up to those promises. We see a very diverse cabinet, a very diverse staff. As you mentioned, Cedric Richmond, the congressman from Louisiana, is now the top guy in the White House under Biden. So they are, you think back, Dr. Chavis, to that interview, and you think about the things he said. He's living up to that. And not only that, remember when you sat down and interviewed Biden at that time, he was far behind in the polls. The next day after your interview, Congressman Clyburn endorsed him, and he never looked back. It was uphill from then. He went on to capture the nomination and, of course, the presidency.
Exactly. You recall, Stacey, we were fortunate there in Charleston, South Carolina, to have my whole executive committee of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, along with Karen Carter Richards, our chair. We had all of the members of our executive committee there, the distinguished publisher of the Atlanta Voice, Janice Ware, distinguished publisher of the County News in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Fran Farah. I don't know, make sure I got her name spelled right. Fran, a great leader there in North Carolina with the Black press. And we had Brenda Andrews, the distinguished publisher of the New Journal and Guide in Norfolk, Virginia. And of course, we had our distinguished NNPA secretary, from Mississippi, the Mississippi Link. And I think that Sister Jackie Hamilton, and we had many other of our publishers that were there. They got to meet then Vice President Biden, and now tomorrow will be the President of the United States. But he made an affectionate, you recall when I asked him about healthcare, a little tears came in his eyes because he was thinking about how this issue of health has impacted his own family. So he's sincere. I think one of the things you'll learn about the incoming President Biden is that he's a man of his word. You hear him in his speech, he says, I give you my word. And for him, his word means something. He has integrity, he has character, and I think he's going to restore a sense of decency to the White House. And I think that as President of the United States, he's going to say no once and for all to white supremacy.
Yeah, and good morning again to KP Hodges. Sultana Ali says, we have 10 years to get this country right. Let's get to work. Bert Schumann says, let us continue to bend the art as a gentle, angry people. And one viewer says, prison officials all over the country are releasing prisoners without COVID-19 tests or without adequate quarantine. And we know that federal prisons are on lockdown this week because of threats of violence as it pertains to the inauguration. But Dr. Chavis, actually another thing with this administration, there's a lot of anticipation about criminal justice reform. And criminal justice reform, just so we understand this, doesn't just include the prisons itself, because once you get to the prison, that's one thing. But it's before you get to prison. It's the prosecutors, it's the district attorneys. There needs to be reform at that level as well. And I'm sure you can speak to that, Dr. Chavis, that the great injustice done to you in the Wilmington 10 back in the 1970s was born out of a prosecutor, a racist prosecutor.
Well, thank you. This year, 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of the incident that led to the Wilmington 10. Man, it's been 50 years. And of course, 10 of us, I was 23 years old at the time. The other 8 members of the Wilmington were only 16, 17, 18 years old, high school student leaders. We were sentenced to a combined total of 282 years in prison. This was in the 1970s. Obviously, we fought back. We did not give up. Took a decade for us to get our convictions overturned. And then another 30 years to get our names cleared when the governor of North Carolina in 2012 finally issued a pardon of innocence, admitting that we should have never been arrested, never been incarcerated. So yes, I have some firsthand experience spending most of the 1970s unjustly in North Carolina prisons. But I just want to say to a lot of our brothers and sisters who are locked down today, disproportionately across America because of racism and because of mass incarceration. But you're right. Criminal justice reform not only starts with the police or with corrections. Criminal justice reform starts with getting rid of all these racist prosecutors, racist judges, and people who make a living off of putting people in jail unjustly. So we're looking forward to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and hopefully that will pass. And of course, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, we're going to get reparations bill also passed in the new Congress. So there's a lot for us to be hopeful for. But let me say to Black America before we sign off that we must be vigilant. Yes, we're going to rejoice with the first Black woman becoming Vice President of the United States. There's going to be a sense of celebration. But I want us to stay on guard. A few days ago, I had to put the Black press on guard, on notice. Because what happens is these white supremacists, they're going to attack somebody. They're going to attack some institution, some community. And I don't want us to be vulnerable and let our guard down. We have to stay vigilant. This is a moment of celebration, but it's also a moment for us to be wise and for us to be discerning of what it is we all need to do to work together to push forward and make more progress for all of our people.
Yeah, Arthur Brown says, let's get it. Good morning, Arthur. Good to see you. Dr. Chavis, going back briefly to the Congressional Black Caucus, they don't often get a lot of accolades, a lot of press for what they do, and they accomplish so much. Yesterday we had Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett on. She is one of the House impeachment managers, and last week we had Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Auntie Maxine, and the representative from Texas, Al Green, as well. These individuals work probably harder than any other lawmaker. Dr. Chavis, can you just again brief our viewers on how vital the CBC is to Congress?
These 59 members of Congress are tremendously important. And I would ask all of our viewers to support each member of the Congressional Black Caucus. Salute their leadership. Let's work. Congresswoman Maxine Waters is chair of the Finance Committee. Congressman Benny Thompson is chair of the Committee of Homeland Security. And of course, Congressman Jim Clyburn is the majority whip. We have Congressman Bobby Scott, who is the chair of the Education Committee. So we have more than ample reason to stay engaged and to be involved and to keep pushing forward. And I want to make sure that our millennials, I know a lot of young people are up watching this morning's program. I want them to see a better future, that we can all work together for intergenerationally, for our young, for our middle-aged, and for our senior citizens. We all have a role to play. You know, I'm reminded we just celebrated Dr. King's birthday yesterday as a national holiday. But Dr. King will remind us that we cannot let anybody turn us around. We cannot let anybody make us lose hope or lose our faith. This is a time for renewal. This is a time for revival. We're resilient people, and we have to stand up now and take back some of the losses that were endured over the last 4 years. But number one, we got to get ourselves out of this virus, and that is vaccinated, protected, and to keep wearing those masks. Even if you have been the good fortune to have already been vaccinated, you still have to wear the mask, you still have to wash your hands, and you still have to engage in social distancing. You know, there's a new variant out of the virus. That's American. We talk about the British variant or the variant in Africa, but now there's an American variant that tends to be much more contagious. So I don't want anybody to relax. Let's keep our strength, keep our faith, and let's win some more victories. We're getting ready to go into Black History Month. And I tell people all the time, Stacey, the best way to celebrate Black history is to make some more history.
Yeah. And I want to also acknowledge our distinguished publisher from the West Side Gazette who's watching, Bobby Henry. Apparently, speaking of the CBC, Congressman Alcee Hastings apparently has taken ill, and so we want to keep him in our thoughts. And also, we're looking forward, as we said, tomorrow, we're looking forward to our chair, Karen Carter Richards will be with us, and Jackie Hampton of the Mississippi Link has confirmed she'll be with us as well. And she's also an executive board member. Dr. Chavis, before we go, I'm going to let you tell our viewers a little bit more about tomorrow.
Yes, beginning at 7:30 tomorrow morning from 7:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, the NMPA will be broadcasting live at the historic inauguration of Joe Biden as President of the United States, the historic inauguration of Kamala Harris as Vice President of the United States. It's going to be festive, it's going to be historic, and we're going to be there on the scene reporting all day long on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. God bless America, and God bless the Black press of America.
Well, let it be known, the road to excellence is always under construction. We will see you tomorrow morning at 7:30. Let it be known, this is the Black Press of America and the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Everybody enjoy your day.